Welcome to the Manufacturing Masters Podcast with your host, Allison DeFord.
So what's your best recommended cure for a hangover? 2 Advil, water, call me in the morning, B12, hair of the dog. Why am I talking about this? I think we're all suffering from what Rich Sade identifies as the COVID hangover. And he is our guest today. He's a veteran manufacturer. He's retired, unretired, retired again, and now he's unretired because he just can't get enough of manufacturing. He's head of sales for S&S Hinge, and I have to tell you, every time I talk to this man, I learn so much, and I know you will too. He's a wealth of information, and we're going to talk about the cure for the COVID hangover, with supply chain issues, offshoring, reshoring, sales and marketing, logistics. Everything has changed. And we're going to help you navigate your way to this new normal and how to prepare for the future so that maybe you don't get caught with a hangover again. Thanks for joining us today. Thanks for investing some time in yourself, in your business, and your team, because please share this with them and everybody grows together. Everybody, here we grow. So Rich, you've been a guest on a previous podcast of mine, and we've created a lovely friendship in business. And you said something recently, and I just had to have you on this podcast because I think our audience will get a lot out of it. I know they're going to be able to relate. You have noticed a theme, and you're calling it the COVID hangover. And struck me. So let's talk a little bit about that. What is that? What are you seeing? What does that look like?
Well, yeah, it just appeared to me after looking at some marketing data and where our sales were and our competitor sales and our customer sales and the different sectors in manufacturing. And talking to a lot of people, I do a lot of trade shows and surveys and stuff. And it just popped into my head one day, and I just said, we're in a COVID manufacturing hangover in our industries in the United States. Now, that doesn't mean everybody, but there definitely is a significant amount of businesses that are readjusting to what had happened for the last 3 or 4 years. And it's very obvious to me that the challenges that we face and what we do in our day-to-day businesses, the effects of what happened during that period and how we changed how we did business, how the supply chain changed, how the markets changed, how the offshoring, reshoring changed, is pretty significant. So I a couple of examples, and I'll be very basic in my analogy, is my crazy sister. She was one of those that went to Costco and bought three flat carts of toilet paper. and paper towels. And then she went out and bought 10 years worth of dried foods because she was going crazy. The world's coming to an end. And in that very simple example, everybody was doing the same thing, and it really caused the disruption in the raw material to manufacturing to the supply chain and the commercial end. So on the industrial end, we saw a lot of that too going on. We got drunk, if you will, by going out there and buying all the raw material we could, forced the price of raw materials up, price increases went up, inflation obviously happened. All the key indicators happened in that period. And, our business was very good. People were stocking, putting inventories in, saying, we're afraid that 6 months from now we can't get steel or stainless and raw materials for you to manufacture and supply us, as an example. So the supply chain during that period, we're seeing that adjustment to today. People still have inventory. Oh, we don't need to order anything. We're still working off a year worth of inventory, as an example. Obviously, that it did help the markets with people slowing down from the standpoint of prices did come down in the raw material side of the sectors. One of the caveats of this whole thing too is my wife's in logistics, and there was a period you couldn't even get a truck, right?
Right.
Couldn't get truck drivers, couldn't get trucks. There was a major disruption in transportation and delivery. Today, there's so much capacity out there. Again, part of the hangover is the capacity, and what that's affecting our shipments and moving in the supply chain of products and that type of thing. The good news is, one of the good news things that I do a lot of business, and I'm developing quite a bit more business in Mexico, is I'm seeing with my network of people and businesses in Mexico, quite a bit of reshoring going on. So there is some good news on that front, that this whole China thing with what happened on deliveries and during COVID forced a lot of companies. Again, part of the hangover is to re-examine their where they're manufacturing, lead times, supply chain, and I know quite a few businesses, and I have quite a few customers that are actually right now building factories on the border. We have this issues down there on the border, but they're investing and building up their factories on the border for domestic North America growth. So that's a good thing. And I think one of the other things that really got businesses into a hangover condition is, the printing of our money, the government money. And boy, there's a ton of examples. I got a buddy of mine that's in the marine aftermarket business. And during COVID, his business doubled. People were buying these aftermarket parts from him, and his manufacturing exploded. He had the two best years in his 35 years of business during COVID. I said, Gene, why? And he said, everybody calls up and puts an order. Well, I got extra money. I got COVID money. So I'm going to buy this accessory for my boat. That's just one minor example. Today, his business is off 50%. So again, there's that problem of injecting all the capital that we did printing money during that period, and how it affected the supply chain and our manufacturing bases, whatever sector. You look at the RV and the boating industry today. I live in an area where there's a lot of marine and boat manufacturing. And the two major ski boats in our region here are actually, they're down less than 50. They're like at 40% right now, production. Working 3 days a week, laying people off from their high in COVID. One of the boat manufacturers, they sell a wave boat that costs $200,000 to $250,000, $300,000. 35% of their product was during COVID was going offshore to Dubai or wherever. Today, it's 3%. I know one of the key players over there, and so they're, again, that's part of the hangover, what they're trying to do, and how does that affect the total supply chain? All the people that make parts, all the suppliers, all the raw material that goes into these boats and that type of thing. So that's just one example. There's other sectors that are doing great. I mean, I got a lot of connections with SpaceX and in that world, in aviation and aerospace and space, and they're crazy. They're going crazy. They can't make enough stuff. They're buying equipment. They're buying capital equipment. They're machining. They're buying billets or whatever. It just goes on and on and on. So I asked him. I said, "What did COVID do for you?" And he said, "It forced us to really hang on to our people because of the talent." So that's the human side of it. So we didn't, when we ramped back up after COVID, that we didn't lose all that talent and to have a employment hangover of good engineers and that type of stuff. So what they did was they were, and these are, again, suppliers to SpaceX and aerospace industry. They did was they sent guys, their employees, men, women, home for 2 years, worked out of their house. Now, the cultural part of that is that people don't want to come back. He was telling me, but they're working through that. And again, that's part of that hangover thing is, okay, now we have to readjust, bring people back to work. How are we going to do that? Et cetera, et cetera. So it's affected their business too. If you think about all the time you spend adjusting and then readjusting, where does that time go? And it's really not productive time, I call it. It's more of an adjustment.
I have a question, because you're a longtime manufacturing guy. You've retired, you've unretired. Every time I talk to you, it's mind-blowing how much experience you have, and it's just, you're like an endless well. So I always enjoy talking with you and learning. And do you, the sense I'm getting, and I want to see what you think, because you've been around for years and years, it seems to me like the best course of action in terms of the story about your sister is don't lose your cool, right? Don't lose your head. Don't get crazy. Keep some composure. And I feel like the second thing I'm identifying here is that it was a wake-up call for businesses, for manufacturers, to maybe don't allow yourself to get so comfortable and pay attention to, like, you likened it, you did this earlier when we were talking before that we started recording, and it made me think of like a soundboard, right? We're always adjusting, we're always moving. It's never going to be perfectly balanced, if you will. And sorry, I have a ambulance or something going by. So my thought from what you've said is don't ever count on that perfect balance, but be adaptable. Always be adapting, right? And looking ahead. Don't get too comfortable, because things are always going to change. You can count on it.
Yeah, the lessons learned there, I think at the 40,000-foot level, is what our government did as far as investing and printing money to try to keep the economy going. And in some ways, a lot of the institutional people that I talk to, professors or wherever, economic type brains out there, really think that was a big mistake. Obviously, it put our country in trillions of dollars of debt, but it falsified the supply chain in a lot of ways, going back to my sister's example, and so that really starts at the, businesses, when they looked at that, it was a good thing that businesses got some cash, they got some capital brought in, they were able to retain their employees, and we got through it. Part of that adjustment, right? However, the lessons learned there was, what did we do with that, and how did we manage that? Going back to that balancing act.
Right.
And I don't think overall in a lot of the sectors that was properly managed or implemented properly within businesses, sectors, or even at the government level. So part of that hangover is, what did we learn from that? If this ever, God forbid, ever happens again, what lessons did we learn from not only the government side, but how we reacted to a pandemic, and then how do we get through it in a way that we're not destroying our businesses and getting these hangover type of situations that we're in right now. Everybody's very confident and solid that we're going to get through it, and all these adjustments will take effect, and maybe another year or two, depending on it's an election year. That's another factor, but I think that the feds have to bone up to the fact that it wasn't really done properly. But again, it's water under the bridge, so let's move on and figure it out.
Right.
But I agree. I agree with you, is that balancing act is still there. It's not going to go away for another year or two. And then, what's the next normal? Who knows? I don't know.
Right. Well, and that's one thing I wanted to make sure we cover for our listeners is, unlike, different than Advil and water or a little hair of the dog, wink, wink. What do you feel like are some cures for this COVID hangover? Like, what can manufacturers do, or what should they be paying attention to?
Well, I think a few things that we're going to see another wave of material cost changes in the industry. I don't care if you're making plastics, you're machining parts, steel, stainless, whatever raw materials you're working with. I do believe that we're in the midst of another wave of price increases and inflation coming up, and all the indicators are showing that. Oil's up. As an example, when oil goes up, that drives everything else up, obviously. We're not producing enough energy and gas to maintain our lower cost manufacturing in those industries that produce raw materials. And so we got to watch that. That again is part of this hangover thing. And you have to adjust to that, and you have to work with your customer base within your business and supply chain, so you're not getting cash poor, or all of a sudden this is going to hit. Are you going to be able to adjust and pass on those price increases? Again, part of the inflation, I think, is going to happen. So that's one aspect of it, is just managing your business and pay very close attention to what's going on in those markets as far as the supply. The other thing is we really got to watch our auto and some of our technology sales sectors to see how are they going to balance through this thing. If with interest rates being where they are, we really have to adjust to that. So if you're in that business, and again, I was very much involved in the Precision Metal Forming Association, PMA, and I still am. A lot of our members are in the automotive supply business, and they're making major cuts right now on investments and trying to stabilize and keep what they have on the books. There's not a lot of new programs out there, so that's got to be watched. I think the overall, you have three really good markets there. You got the consumer market, you have the industrial market, and then I call it the crazy world market, right? we're, we're trying to export and build North America up and trying to get out of Asia as much as possible, which I don't think is ever going to happen 100%, obviously. We need them as much as they need us. But watching those markets and how that's going to affect your business, whether you're, heavily in commercial, heavily industrial, heavily in both, where are those markets going and how can you adjust to make sure that your business is in line with what's going on. So it goes back to that balancing act, but I really don't think that coming out of this, you can do much more than that. Well, there's one other thing. I'll tell you what's going on too, is there's a lot of acquisitions going on. There's a lot of people hanging up. Small private companies are saying, you know what? I can't go through this again. I'm 60 years old. I know a lot of private companies that are up for sale right now. There's a big shift going in. A lot of venture capital is changing what they're doing. They're looking at other industries, more high tech, more not so much industrial based. So how is that going to affect somebody that wants to say, hey, I'm ready to kick it in and I want to sell my business? What's going to happen? I mean, is there a market for that? And there is, but are you going to get 10 cents on a dollar? Are you going to get 50 cents on a dollar? And I know a few examples of that has happened out there where people just didn't get what they should have for their company because the market's depressed, their sales are off, and there's too much competition. So,
I think I want to interject really quick. I think what I've learned from my buddy and our expert on the platform, Damon Pistolka, from Exit Your Way is
Damon.
If you're 60 or you're anywhere close and you're even thinking about selling your business, the thing I've learned from him that I didn't realize before is start planning multiple years before you're ready to make the decision so that you can exit your way, right? You're not getting 10 cents on the dollar. You're getting what you deserve and what you've put into that business. And so that takes preparation, not something to be a decision to be made quickly. And I think what's really cool is people like him are helping owners to not get in that situation. Right.
See, there's a guy that's on the other side of the curve.
Right. Right.
There's a big need for that out there because, it's like anything. Most of our businesses are privately owned in this country, and they're small, and a lot of guys are grassroots type of individuals, and the planning that they've done is just like, well, I'll sell it. I'm 60, but you're absolutely right. And I've been through, as you well know, some acquisitions, and I've done 2 retirements, and I'm back in it again. So it's
you're addicted to manufacturing. Just admit it.
The dog doesn't like me anymore. So it's go back on the road, get out of here. But you're absolutely right. No, he's a good guy and he does a great job. And, there's a big need for that right now.
Yeah.
And then but the biggest key though is not only the preparation, is who can you sell it to? And is there a market for your business?
Right.
People want to kill them. Some competition says, and I'm one of them. Listen, and competitor that we could have bought, and after looking at them or what they have, let them die. We don't need them. So, there's that aspect to it too.
Being strategic.
Yeah,
This
really
time
do.
is imperative, right? Again, don't lose your head if things are crappy right now, and maintain that composure. But what do you think about looking to maybe some new verticals, right? I feel like so many manufacturers that I talk to and that I work with, they have some other markets that they could tap into, and they're just too busy putting out fires and, working with what they have, that they don't really make the effort to explore and take advantage of those other verticals. So what do you think about that? Is, to me, there's an advantage there that you're leaving some money on the table.
Yes, there's a couple things there. One is I go back to the family-owned business, second, third, fourth generation, maybe very complicit in their thinking.
Mhm.
We've been around forever. We'd make a great product.
Everybody knows us.
Everybody knows us, and let's go play golf every Wednesday and Friday.
Yeah.
Well, I've seen that syndrome, especially being in the PMA because of the age group of a lot of the businesses and that organization. That all of a sudden you start getting designed out. You get into a shrinking market syndrome. And it happened to me with my business. So what do? Going back to your point, is you have to look at diversification, acquisitions, new products, and constantly look at changing it again, balancing the business model to fit your business plan of what you're wanting to achieve from setting those goals and trying to get those achievements. That is a very good point, that when you get complicit in today's market, it's not like the 60s, the 70s, even the 80s, where you could trudge along and you're doing great. Now you have global competition, you have people going out of business, you have engineers are finding new products, there's new product development, you get designed out, and all of a sudden you wake up one day and go, oh my God, our business is off 30%. What happened to those 30% of customers? And I'll give you a good example of it. I'm sure a lot of your podcast group out there have been to a casino,
Mm-hmm.
right? Slot machine, right? I supplied hardware to the gaming industry for years, and to all the slot machine and gaming machine manufacturers. And they're very inventive in what they do, because that's the requirement in that market, to come up with a new game,
Right.
change role. So back in about 2015, 2016, I noticed our sales in that market, that sector, were starting to slide. And the panic mode went on and said, okay, I got to figure out what's going on. And sure enough, over time, we were getting designed out. The designs were changing, not so much design out, but the designs of the machines were changing. And hence the market changed. So we immediately, I changed focus from the gaming, because now you go in, you look at a machine, it's not in a big cabinet anymore. You got a monitor, what they call a belly, little box down here, and that's it. There's not a lot of hardware in these machines anymore. And so immediately we look to diversify into other markets and doing some international business. So again, that's something you just have to look at your data, be aware of, and it is without a doubt constantly changing.
Right.
Constantly changing. So, we service, just think about it, we service about, I think I got about 1,600 active customers. And if I look at the diversification of that 1,600 customers, it's anything you can ever think of that takes a hinge or a latch, that type of thing. So we touch a lot of different markets. That's why I think I'm sensitive to the COVID hangover manufacturing, because some of those markets bounce back really well and some haven't because of, again, the supply chain and inventories. So it's going to be, I think, another year or two adjustment. We'll see what the election brings us, but that's the key there, is just look at your data, be aware of what's going on, talk to your customers, talk to your suppliers, and really, and I'm sure most business people do. I mean, they do. I'm not saying anything newer. It's just what happened, and the hangover is, well, we better look forward, learn from the past, but look forward and try to figure out what we're going to do, and maybe have to change our business model to reflect the new post-COVID era that we're in. So
exactly. Well, man, our time is up, and I just want to thank you for your insight. You always have so much to offer. Anyone in our audience who's not already connected with Rich on LinkedIn, I highly encourage you to reach out and connect with him. He's a wealth of information, and he's an incredibly thoughtful human, and just really appreciate you.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I think that we're going to survive this. We're going to be fine. We just have to dig our feet into the trenches and just get through this year and see what's going to happen, and use our best judgment to get out of the hangover and into the party mode again, right?
Yes, but take it easy so that you don't have a hangover again.
Yeah, right.
Well,
thank you very much. And
I appreciate you. And I appreciate you listening, for taking some time out of your day today. You matter, and the work that you do matters. And I don't think that you get told that enough. So keep manufacturing. As I've always said, keep manufacturing out loud, because we need you. And if you're not already subscribed to this podcast, please do that at Apple Podcasts. And if you like what you're hearing and you care to leave a review, that's really helpful too, because it lets other people know that this is something worth tuning into. So thank you, everybody. Until next time.
Thank you. Have a good day.
If you're not already, subscribe to the Manufacturing Masters podcast on Apple Music or Spotify. And for a deeper dive, head on over to manufacturing-masters.com. It's everything they never taught you in school.